Hey everyone, I hope you're having an amazing day so far and thanks for tuning in into this video. In this training video, we're going to be covering the schedule module. The project schedule is a great way to keep track of your project schedule and deliverables, understand when certain tasks are supposed to be completed and ongoing, and it can be used for both distribution to your team as well as your customers as well. So let's get started. We'll head over to the menu at the very top and then go to Schedule under Project Management. Once here, we'll take a look and it'll automatically populate one of our existing project schedules if you have one created. You can also take a look at one of your existing project schedules or change or add them to the view by going to Projects on the left-hand side and selecting what's needed, and we'll get into that later on into the video. Additionally, there's probably two buttons at the very top right-hand corner which you might be familiar with. The first one is a watch a how-to video, and this is likely how you got to this video in the first place. In addition to the video, we also have numerous articles from our knowledge base, answering frequently asked questions about the module, and some best tips and practices on how to use this module. In addition to that, we also have suggestion new feature button. Here at Contractor Foreman, we're always looking to improve and we're always collecting feedback. If you have an idea or suggestion on how we can improve this module, feel free to drop us a note. We're always launching updates based off the feedback that we get from our customers. As we scroll down and take a look at the schedule, we can see that we have a number of tasks already displayed on the screen. I imported these directly from my estimate when I converted the estimate into a project. If you have questions about estimates or projects, feel free to check out our training videos on estimates and projects. In addition, we also have a number of headings on the left-hand side, including task name, start date, etc. If you'd like to configure this and select what you'd like to see and what you don't like to see, just right-click anywhere on the columns on the left-hand side, and we can click on Show Columns and choose what we'd like to see or not add. For example, there's also an additional setting for end date that we can include if we like, and if we'd like to turn it off, we can simply just click on End Date. And it's simple as that. In addition, we can also go ahead and add in a new task by going to the top right hand corner, clicking under Add. Here we can go ahead and create a new task name. For this example, I'm going to call it Punch List and Closeout. We can assign a contractor who's responsible for this, or any kind of contact. In addition to an employee as well, for her to manage this as well. And we can add a short description. We can also add send email, and this sends an updated email to the contractors, contacts, and employees on this. Once I click on this and I hit save, it'll send a notification via email directly to one of the people associated or whoever is associated here that this task has been formulated. If I go ahead and click on save and open this up again, the send email checkmark will be gone because it sent out the notification. And anytime you're making an adjustment, a change, and would like to notify the contacts or the employees by email, feel free to hit send email and hit save after. For now, I'll leave it alone. I don't think I need to send it out to anybody. We can also select a task of either a task or a milestone. A task is something that needs to be completed as part of the project schedule and has a defined start and end date, whereas a milestone is more of a landmark or a highlight of where we're ending up or of a specific milestone that we're reaching in the project. For example, substantial completion or when the building envelope is closed. We can actually also go ahead and change the progress percentage if needed and show if it's 50% done, 25% done, etc. And we'll come back to this later. And we can also change the color for this if needed, and we can change the colors for any of them. I'll go ahead and choose lavender for this one. And for the scheduled actual, we can define and set how long this task is supposed to be. I'll change this to 5 days for now. And for baseline and planned, we'll come back to this later on. So with that, I'll go ahead and click on save, and I now have my new task. Let's open up one of our tasks that's currently in progress. I'll go ahead and open up demolition, which is something that my team is, let's say, actively working on right now. I want to say that the progress on demolition is currently at 50%. So I'll go ahead and choose 50%, and I'm going to play around with the colors, and for this one, I'll just go ahead and put yellow here. Now I can also establish scheduled and actual dates. Scheduled and actual is what is actually occurring on the field, and baseline and plan dates is what you initially expected for this to take. So for example, let's say I only took demolition to take 3 days, but now after my contractor came on site and now he's completing the work, it's actually going to take 5 days. So overall, the project schedule is 2 days behind the overall baseline, and it will be reflected in the project schedule. So I'll go ahead and click on save here. And as you can see, I now have the yellow task which I chose, and it's shaded 50% of the way because that's how much it's been completed so far. In addition, we also have a line saying overdue by 2 days because the baseline schedule showed that this task should take 3 days. However, the actual schedule is showing 5 days, and I can now compare it to my baseline. If you'd like to hide that, you can simply go ahead and click on Hide Baseline. Another feature of the project schedule module is dependencies. Contractor Foreman supports 4 different types of dependencies: finish to start to start, finish to finish, and start to finish. Let's get started with the first one, finish to start, which is one of the most common ones as well. Finish to start dependencies means that once an item is completed, then its successor can then start. So for example, let's say we're looking at demolition and framing. In order for framing to start, demolition must get completed first. So in order to do that, let's go to the far side of demolition, drag that circle, meaning the completion of demolition, and drag it to the beginning of framing. And we now have a dependency. This shows that framing can only start once demolition is completed. We can take a look at the dependency by double clicking on the arrow, and we now have an opportunity to add a lag or a lead. A lag is establishing a set date between the two dependencies and how much longer it needs to be or how many days before the next task actually starts. So for example, let's say that after demolition is completed, the framing crew needs a day or two to set up on site, manage all the materials before they can actually get started with the work. So let's say it'll take them 2 days. We now have a lag. You can also establish a lead so that the framing crew, for example, is actually starting before demolition finishes. In order to do that, simply add in a negative value, such as -1 or -2. I'm going to keep the lag that I have and go ahead and click on save, and I now have a lag of 2 days in my project schedule. Another type of dependency we can establish is called start to start. This means a successor task cannot begin until the predecessor task has started. So in this case, HVAC and plumbing are being started by the same contractor, and they're going to start at the same time. The first one cannot start with the other because they're both being done by the same contractor, and they're going to mobilize and start at the same time. In order to set up that dependency, I can simply go ahead and drag the beginning of HVAC and drag it to the beginning of plumbing, and I now have a start to start dependency. In addition, I can also, on the other hand, do a finish to finish dependency. This means a successor task cannot be completed until a predecessor task is completed. And for this one, I can go ahead and establish it between electrical and drywall paint. Because electrical is going to need the electrical cover plates and has to get completed, the drywall and paint can't actually get completed until all the electrical outlets and trim is done first, so they're both going to finish together. So I'll go ahead, drop it, and I now have a finish to finish dependency as well. The last type of dependency is a little tricky because it is uncommon, and it's called start to finish, meaning a successor task cannot be completed until a predecessor task has started. In order to show this, I might need to make a new task. So I'll go ahead for my project schedule and create a new task, and I'll call this temporary site fencing. And I'll go ahead and click on save. And what I want to show is the start to finish relationship between punch list and closeout and temporary fencing. Once the punch list and closeout starts, the fencing can now be removed and finished because it is now safe for the occupants to return to the site. But the fencing needs to stay up until the punch list and closeout starts. In order to show that, I need to go to the beginning of punch list and closeout and take it to the completion of temporary site fencing. And I now have a start to finish relationship. We can also add subtasks for certain projects. So for example, under framing, I can also break down the schedule to show first floor framing, assign it to maybe just my contractor this time, and maybe a different color of maroon is not started yet and will take 2 days, and second floor framing as well. As you can see, I'm creating the subtask by going to the task I want to use, and then using the add button there to create the subtask of that task. And I can also call second floor framing, assign it to the same subcontractor, and I'll bring this one up to 3 days and hit save. And I now have subtasks in addition to my framing as well. So let's go ahead and close out this project schedule and finish the dependencies. So for the remaining items, I can just do a finish to start dependencies that I don't have already between framing and HVAC. And as you can see, it automatically drags these items because the dependencies are being set up. I can't scroll that much to the far right, but if you'd like to change your view or zoom in or zoom out, you can click on zoom to fit and zoom out or zoom in accordingly if needed. In addition, for HVAC and plumbing, I don't want electrical to start until HVAC is completed, so I'll set up that dependency. I can't start punch list and closeout until I have drywall and paint completed, so I'll set up another dependency, and now my schedule is pretty much good to go. You can also move tasks around in the schedule module by simply going to the task and moving it right or left as necessary. However, if I go ahead and, for example, go to punch list and closeout and try to move this task, you'll see that it won't work. And this is because there's a dependency attached to it, and its position and time and schedule is based on the dependency and cannot be manually switched. If you like to turn that off, what you can do is use the auto scheduling feature. The auto scheduling feature enables or disables the role of dependencies within Contractor Foreman. For example, right now the dependencies or auto scheduling is turned on, and therefore all of the tasks that have a predecessor or a successor define where the task is going to be in the timeline. For example, like I just mentioned earlier, the punch list and closeout cannot occur before the drywall and paint because the drywall and paint is currently scheduled along here. If I move it forward, you'll see that it works because it can happen as long as it's after drywall and paint. And also, the temporary site fencing also moves along with it. What I can do is go ahead and click on Disable Auto Scheduling. This does not remove the dependencies, but does disable the automatic scheduling that comes with it. So if I go to punch list and closeout, I can actually go ahead and slide it all the way back. And you'll notice that temporary site fencing does not get pushed because dependencies are not defining the project schedule task right now. In addition, at the very top, we also have a show critical path option. The critical path is the sequence of stages determining the minimum time needed for an operation or a schedule. So I'll go ahead and click on show critical path, and what you'll note is that all of my tasks within the critical path are highlighted orange, all the way from demolition to temporary site fencing. And these are the tasks that need to happen on time in order for us to achieve the original project schedule. You'll note that exterior improvements or plumbing are not part of it, and this is because they're not part of the critical path and can happen later on in the project. If you'd like to see that, or what it is that we call slack, which is the amount of time a task can be delayed without delaying the project's overall completion date, you can use the show slack button here. We can now see the slack available to us for the projects without compromising the overall completion date. For example, exterior improvements can happen towards the end of the project rather than the beginning, and it won't delay or push ahead the overall project schedule because it's not part of the critical path, and there's some slack built in which you can view here. We'll go ahead and click on Enable Auto Scheduling again to bring our schedule back to normal. And you can also view the schedule in different formats besides just a Gantt chart view. If you go to the very top, you can also see we have a list view, where you can drag and drop all the different items within your project schedule and highlight who the assigned contractors are, the contacts and durations as required. And you can also view it in a calendar setting. The project is currently happening in June, and you can see a quick calendar view of all the different tasks assigned with the same color-coded combinations as well. If you'd like to add different projects or change the project into your Gantt chart, you can actually go ahead to the top left and click on projects, and we can add another project as needed. I'll go ahead and click on Glenridge Home Renovation, hit save, and as you see we can view both projects all at the same time in addition to all of their tasks and subtasks as required. This is a great way to see a forecast of all your different projects that you have ongoing and understand what's happening across all of your different projects all in one view. There's also a few more things that we can take a look at by going to the top right hand corner and clicking on actions. Here we can do a few other options. We can send out a schedule notification. This will send out a notification to either all the employees or assigned contracts and contacts, if you choose which one you'd like to select with, a notification of all the tasks that are happening today or sometime in the future. This way you can quickly remind your project crew or your customers or whoever else about the upcoming task on this project at any given point that you'd like to choose. In addition, there's a few different export options that you have, including PDF, PNG, Excel, iCal, and MS Project. We also have an opportunity for you to import from an existing Microsoft project file. If your current project setup is in Microsoft Project, or if you prefer to work in Microsoft Project but import into Contractor Foreman after, you can simply import the Microsoft project that you have available. You can also copy the schedule to a different project if needed. For example, if you're working on a different project with a very similar scope of work and very similar schedule, you can simply copy one of the existing schedules onto another project as needed. Lastly, we can also take a look at change workdays. If your company or team is working non-traditional days besides just Monday to Friday, you can change the workdays that are available for them, either Monday to Thursday, Monday to Friday, Monday to Saturday, or pretty much 7 days a week and assign it. As you do, the schedule will be updated because the duration that you put in for the individual tasks are set up for working days. So if a task takes 5 days, which is inherently 1 week, Monday to Friday, it'll only show it Monday to Friday, and it'll continue the other items and the other dependencies on Saturday, Sunday, etc. Essentially streamlining and shrinking the overall project schedule because there's more working days available. In addition, you can also assign non-working days. If you have any holidays coming up or company office closures, you can assign them here so they don't impact your overall project schedule. For example, I can go ahead and add in that there's a company retreat happening or it has already happened on the 7th of July, and I'll call this company retreat. Hit save, and it'll be marked here in my project schedule that there is a day off right here. And lastly, we have an option to delete schedule. If you'd prefer to delete the entire schedule that you have existing on a project and just restart, you have the opportunity to completely delete the schedule as well. And that's pretty much it for project schedule. It's a great way for you to keep track of your overall project schedules and overlap amongst other projects so you can forecast and plan ahead about the upcoming work that's required. And it's a great way to keep your customers and your clients up to date about where the project is at as well. If you need help or have any further questions, feel free to reach out to us by the live chat or send us an email at support@contractorforeman.com. And if you'd like to have any more in-depth training, make sure to book a session on our training page. Thanks for watching and see you in another video.